What if the biggest financial mistake you're making right now isn't about where you're putting your money, but about who knows you're doing it? Think about the last time something good happened to you financially. Maybe you got a raise. Maybe you finally started investing. Maybe you paid off a credit card. What did you do next? If you're like most people, you told someone, a friend, a family member, maybe you posted about it. And that felt good, right? That little rush of sharing your win. Here's the uncomfortable truth. That feeling might be quietly destroying your wealth. Warren Buffett, one of the richest humans to ever walk this planet, has spent over 7 decades building wealth in a way that most people completely misread. They look at him and think, oh, he just buys good companies and holds them forever. And yes, that's part of it, but there's a deeper code running underneath, a pattern in how he behaves, how he thinks, and most importantly, how he moves in silence. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In old money families, in quietly wealthy neighbors, in people who seem ordinary but retire early with more than anyone expected. Today, we're going to decode that pattern, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand something about wealth that most people never figure out in their entire lives. Here's the story most of us grow up believing about money. Work hard, earn more, show it. That's success. We live in a world that constantly rewards visibility. The person who drives the nicest car gets respect. The person who posts the vacation gets the likes. The person who announces their business idea gets the encouragement and the excitement. Visibility feels like validation, and validation feels like success. So naturally, we start to believe that wealth and display go hand in hand. But here's where it gets interesting. Researchers who studied millionaires across the United States found something that shocked a lot of people. The majority of genuinely wealthy individuals, people with real net worth, not just high income, don't look wealthy at all. They live in modest neighborhoods, they drive older cars, they don't talk about their portfolio at dinner parties. Meanwhile, the people who look the wealthiest, the flashy cars, the designer clothes, the constant upgrades, are often the most financially fragile. They're spending to signal status rather than building actual security. There's a term for this trap. Economists call it conspicuous consumption, but you can just call it what it really is, performing wealth instead of building it. And here's the psychological twist that makes this so dangerous. Every time you perform wealth, you're not just spending money, you're also getting a hit of dopamine. Your brain rewards you for the social approval, and just like any other reward loop, you start chasing it. You upgrade again, you share again, you signal again. Meanwhile, the gap between what you earn and what you actually keep, the gap that creates real wealth, quietly closes. Now, let's talk about Warren Buffett, because his life is basically a masterclass in doing the exact opposite. Buffett grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, not New York, not San Francisco, Omaha. And here's what's fascinating. He's still there. He's worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and he still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,000. He still gets up and goes to McDonald's for breakfast. He still drinks cherry Coke from a can. People think this is just charming quirk. It's not. It's strategy. Let's break down the actual code, piece by piece. Piece 1. The silence principle. Warren Buffett almost never announces what he's buying before he buys it. When Berkshire Hathaway is accumulating a position in a company, they do it quietly, often over months. Why? Because the moment you announce what you're investing in, 2 things happen. First, other people rush in, which drives the price up against you. Second, you create psychological pressure on yourself to be right, because now your ego is attached to the trade. Think about how different this is from what most of us do. We find a stock, or a cryptocurrency, or a business idea we're excited about, and we immediately tell our friends. We post about it. We get validation from the excitement. And then, even if new information comes along that suggests we were wrong, we hold on, because now it's not just an investment, it's our identity. Selling would feel like admitting we were wrong in public. Silence in investing isn't just modesty, it's a competitive advantage. Piece 2, the invisibility of compounding.
There's a reason compounding is called the eighth wonder of the world, and it's not just because the math is impressive, it's because the most powerful phase of compounding is invisible. Buffett made more than 90% of his total wealth after his 50th birthday. 90% after 50. He started investing at 11 years old, and for the first 40 decades, from the outside, he just looked like a successful but unremarkable investor in Nebraska. The growth was happening underground, like roots before a tree shoots up. Most people give up on their investments before this phase even begins. They invest for 2 or 3 years, don't see dramatic results, and either pull out or start chasing something faster. They never experience the exponential phase because they can't see it coming. Imagine you planted a tree and spent the first 10 years watching it grow from a seed to a small sapling. Every year you'd think, this is taking forever. But underground, the root system was spreading. And then suddenly the tree starts growing faster than you thought possible. Buffett understood this at a level most people don't. He didn't just know the math of compounding, he trusted it deeply enough to let it work in the dark, without applause, without validation, for decades. And here's where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just a financial strategy, it's a psychological one. There's a concept in psychology called social performance theory. When we share our goals publicly, whether it's a fitness goal or a financial goal, our brain experiences a preview of the reward. It feels like you've already partially achieved it, and that feeling actually reduces your motivation to follow through. In other words, talking about your financial building plans gives you the emotional payoff without the actual result. Warren Buffett never fell into this trap. He never announces goals. He never celebrates milestones loudly. He executes quietly and lets the results speak for themselves, often years later. And there's another layer here that most people miss. Wealth in silence isn't just about investing. It's about the entire psychology of how money moves through your life. Think about what happens when people around you know you have money. Suddenly, there's more requests, more expectations, more subtle pressure to spend on things that keep relationships comfortable. Expensive dinners, group trips you can't really afford, gifts that stretch your budget. Not because anyone is malicious, but because money changes social dynamics whether we want to or not. The quietly wealthy understand this instinctively. They keep a low profile not out of shame, but out of protection. Protection of their capital, yes, but also protection of their peace. There's a beautiful old concept that appears across cultures, the idea that the most secure person in the room is often the quietest one. They have nothing to prove, they're not performing, they're building. Warren Buffett embodies this completely. He doesn't drive a Ferrari to prove he can afford one. He doesn't need the external confirmation. His internal scorecard, his own measure of progress, is enough. This is actually one of the most important money psychology insights you can ever absorb. As long as your sense of financial worth comes from external validation, from what others think of your lifestyle, your portfolio, your purchases, you will always be in a reactive, performance-driven relationship with money. You'll spend to impress, you'll invest for bragging rights, you'll take risks to have a good story. But the moment your financial decisions stop being about the audience and start being about your actual future, everything shifts. So, what do you actually do with this? You don't need to move to Nebraska and eat McDonald's every morning, but here's the real behavioral shifts that come from understanding Buffett's shadow code.
First, stop announcing your financial moves before you make them. Whether it's a new investment, a savings goal, or a plan to pay off debt, keep it private until it's done. Not because it's a secret, but because secrecy protects your motivation and your strategy. Second, start measuring your wealth by what you keep, not what you spend. Every month, ask yourself not how much did I earn, but how much did I actually add to my net worth. That gap between income and net worth is the number that actually matters. Wealthy people obsess over this gap. Everyone else ignores it. Third, give compounding the time it needs. If you're in your 20s or 30s and you feel like your investments aren't doing enough, you're probably in the underground root phase. The tree is growing, you just can't see it yet. The worst thing you can do is pull it up to check. Fourth,
Audit your financial social life. How much are you spending to maintain an image? Dinners, gifts, holidays, upgrades. How much of that is genuinely making your life better, and how much of it is performance? This isn't about being cheap, it's about being intentional. Every dollar you redirect from performance to purpose is a dollar working for your future. And fifth, shift from an external scorecard to an internal one. Start tracking your own progress on your own terms. Set a net worth target, track it privately, celebrate privately. Let the results be your reward, not the reaction. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. In a world that monetizes attention, where everything is about being seen, being loud, being first, real wealth has quietly become a rebellion. To save when everyone around you is spending, to invest when no one knows you're investing, to build slowly when the world celebrates fast. These are radical acts. Warren Buffett didn't become extraordinary by trying to look extraordinary. He became extraordinary by being consistent, quiet, and deeply patient for longer than most people are willing to be anything. And the most interesting part? He's still at it. He's not done. Not because he needs more money, but because this is who he is. The building is the point. The process is the reward. So, the next time you feel the urge to announce a financial win before it happens, or upgrade something just so others can see you've upgraded, or pull out of an investment because the waiting feels invisible, pause for a second. Ask yourself, am I building or am I performing? Because the shadow code isn't really about secrecy. It's about knowing the difference between a life built for an audience and a life built for yourself. And one of those compounds, the other one doesn't.